Bum, 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 bum,
Unlimited
bum,
Spider-Man number
bum.
1.5, Friendly Neighborhood New York had officially decided that Spider-Man was either a menace, a miracle, or very good at property damage. Peter Parker was trying not to think about that. He was too busy trying not to spill coffee on his girlfriend. Careful, Mary
Oh,
Jane laughed.
I forgot. Wrong story. I thought this was number one, not number 1.5. I forgot I made a number 1.5.
Unlimited Spider-Man number 1, Episode 1, Shocker. New York always sounded louder at night. Sirens echoed longer. Footsteps felt sharper. Every shadow seemed like it had something to hide. High above Manhattan, a thin red and blue figure clung to the side of a skyscraper, fingers pressed into glass as if it were solid stone. He tilted his head, listening. Okay, Spider-Man muttered to himself, voice slightly muffled by the mask. Either that's a car backfiring, or somebody's having a really bad day with explosives. A second later, the windows of Midtown Federal Bank burst outward in a violent shockwave. Spider-Man sighed. Explosives it is. He leapt. Herman Schultz had never wanted to be a supervillain. He wanted recognition. He wanted respect. Most of all, he wanted someone to admit he was a genius. He'd grown up in Queens, good with his hands, better with machines. By 22, he could rebuild a transmission blindfolded. By 25, he was designing vibration harnesses capable of producing controlled seismic pulses. The military contractors he pitched to called it unstable. His former employer called it dangerous. The patent board called it denied. Herman called it ignored. So he stole his own designs back. The suit wasn't pretty. Padded insulation layered under reinforced plating to absorb recoil. A mask with yellow lenses. And most importantly, his gauntlets. Twin vibro shock emitters capable of channeling focused concussive blasts strong enough to crack concrete. If they wouldn't fund him, he'd fund himself. The vault door of Midtown Federal buckled inward like cardboard. Employees screamed. Security guards dove for cover. Herman stepped through the smoke, gauntlets humming with power. Everybody stay down, he shouted, his voice shaking more from adrenaline than fear. I don't want to hurt nobody. One guard lunged. Herman panicked. He fired. The blast hurled the man across the room into a marble pillar, shattering it in a burst of dust. Silence followed. Herman stared at the destruction. He hadn't meant. A red and blue blur crashed through the shattered windows. And I thought my student loans were bad. Spider-Man quipped, flipping midair before sticking to the ceiling. Buddy, you can't just redecorate a bank without a permit. Herman squinted up at him. You gotta be kidding me. Oh, I wish I was. I had plans tonight. Pizza. Maybe not getting blown up. Herman raised a gauntlet. Stay out of this. Counterpoint, Spider-Man replied, dropping from the ceiling in a spiral dive. No. The first shockwave ripped across the floor, splintering tile. Spider-Man somersaulted over it, landing behind Herman and firing webbing at the gauntlets. Herman spun and unleashed a full-force blast. The concussion sent Spider-Man through a teller counter and a spray of wood. Ow, he groaned, standing quickly. Okay, note to self, yellow oven mitts are not decorative. Herman fired again and again, wild bursts tearing apart walls, desks, anything in his path. Spider-Man moved constantly, flipping over blasts, sticking to walls, webbing light fixtures, and yanking them down to obscure Herman's aim. But this wasn't like fighting a purse snatcher. Every shot carried real power. Every mistake could mean someone dying. Spider-Man vaulted forward, absorbing the impact of a partial shockwave with a grunt, and kicked Herman square in the chest. The padding absorbed most of it, but it knocked him off balance long enough for Spider-Man to web one gauntlet shut. Hey, that's custom tech, Herman shouted, slamming the stuck gauntlet against a pillar until it cracked free. Another blast caught Spider-Man midair and hurled him through the vault entrance. His ears rang. His ribs screamed. This was his first real superpowered opponent, and it showed. Herman stormed forward. You don't get it. They laughed at me. Said I wasn't smart enough. Spider-Man pulled himself up slowly. Trust me, I get not being taken seriously. He shot twin web lines past Herman, anchoring them to opposite walls. Herman charged. Spider-Man yanked. The webs snapped tight across Herman's path. He tripped forward, and Spider-Man launched himself feet first into Herman's chest. Both crashed into the vault. Herman tried to fire again, but Spider-Man wrapped both gauntlets in thick layers of webbing, binding the emitters tight. The shockwave discharged internally. The gauntlets fizzled out with a dying whine. Herman slumped. Police sirens wailed outside. Spider-Man stood over him, breathing hard. Guess we'll call you. He paused, glancing at the cracked marble and shattered vault door. Shocker. Because wow. Subtle. Herman glared up at him. You think this ends it? Spider-Man hesitated. For a split second, doubt flickered. He didn't know if it did, but he had to believe it did. That's kind of the point, he replied quietly. An hour later, Spider-Man perched on a water tower across from the Daily Bugle building. Inside, newsroom lights burned bright. J. Jonah Jameson stormed across the bullpen floor, waving a newspaper proof in one hand. I want that masked menace on the front page, he barked. He destroyed half a bank. A calm voice responded nearby. Technically, said Yuri Watanabe, arms crossed, badge glinting under fluorescent light, the suspect destroyed the bank. Spider-Man stopped him, Jameson scoffed. Spider-Man attracts lunatics. Yuri didn't budge. He saved lives tonight. From the doorway, a red-haired woman watched the debate with quiet fascination. Mary Jane Watson adjusted her camera strap and smirked. You know, Jonah, for someone who hates him, you sure talk about him a lot. Jameson grumbled something unintelligible. Across the street, Spider-Man smiled faintly behind his mask. They were arguing about him, about what he meant. That was new. He swung down into an alley and slipped into civilian clothes moments later. Peter Parker stepped back onto the street just as Mary Jane exited the building. She nearly walked into him. Oh, sorry, Peter, right? He froze. Yeah, hi. Sorry, I was just, walking. Near an alley? She teased. Big fan of brick walls, she laughed. It was warm, uncomplicated. For a second, the weight of the mask lifted. You see the bank? She asked. Yeah, Peter said softly. That guy, he seemed angry. Everyone's angry about something, she replied. Doesn't mean you get to level a building. Peter nodded. Across the street, Yuri exited the Bugle, glancing down the block with sharp awareness. For just a second, her eyes seemed to land on Peter, on Spider-Man, on the space between. Then she turned and walked away. Peter looked back up at the skyline, his first supervillain, his first real victory, and it already felt like the beginning of something bigger. In a dim Rikers Island holding cell, Herman Schultz stared at his confiscated gauntlets through reinforced glass. They'll see, he muttered. They'll all see. Cast J. Jonah Jameson, played by J.K. Simmons. Yuri Watanabe, played by Manami Hamabi. Mary Jane Watson, played by Abigail Breslin. Spider-Man Peter Parker, played by Andrew Garfield. Shocker Herman Schultz, played by Bokeem Woodbine. Unlimited Spider-Man number 1.5. Friendly Neighborhood New York had officially decided that Spider-Man was either a menace, a miracle, or very good at property damage. Peter Parker was trying not to think about that. He was too busy trying not to spill coffee on his girlfriend. Careful, Mary Jane laughed, steadying the cup in his hands as they walked through Central Park. If you stain this jacket, I'm telling everyone the city's hero can't handle a latte. Peter adjusted the strap of his camera bag and smiled sheepishly. In my defense, gravity and I have a complicated relationship, she smirked. You literally defy gravity. Allegedly. They walked beneath trees that were just beginning to bloom, sunlight flickering through the branches. It felt normal, peaceful, the kind of quiet Peter wasn't used to. Mary Jane Watson had a way of making the world feel smaller, manageable. So, she said, nudging him lightly, any big photography gigs coming up? More mysterious rooftop shots? Peter nearly choked on his coffee. Just the usual skyline stuff. She didn't push. She never did. That was what scared him most. They stopped near a bench overlooking the pond. A breeze kicked up, carrying the sounds of the city, car horns, distant chatter, and a frantic meowing. Peter's head snapped up instantly. Mary Jane noticed. You heard that too, right? Another sharp, panicked cry echoed from above. They both looked up. Halfway up a tall oak tree, a small gray cat clung to a branch, trembling. A little girl stood below, crying into her mother's coat. Mr. Whiskers. Peter felt his stomach twist. Mary Jane glanced sideways at him, arms crossing slowly. You're thinking about it, aren't you? Peter tried to look innocent. He failed spectacularly. It's just a cat, he said. Mary Jane raised an eyebrow. And trees are tall. And I may or may not know someone who's good with heights. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. Go. Peter blinked. What? she repeated, softer now. Be the guy who saves cats. He searched her face for suspicion. He found only encouragement. He hesitated just long enough to make it believable. I'll go find help, he said, already backing away. Mary Jane smiled knowingly as he ducked behind a maintenance shed. Moments later, a red and blue figure swung overhead and landed gracefully near the base of the tree. The crowd gasped. The little girl's tears stopped instantly. Don't worry, Spider-Man said gently, crouching near her. I've handled worse than trees, usually with lasers. He scaled the trunk effortlessly, clinging to bark as easily as brick. The cat hissed when he approached, claws digging into the branch. Hey, he murmured softly. I promise I'm only slightly weirder than you. He inched closer. The branch cracked under the cat's shifting weight. Spider-Man reacted instantly, web shooters firing as the branch snapped. The cat fell and landed safely against Spider-Man's chest, wrapped in webbing like a tiny gray burrito. The crowd cheered as he descended. He knelt and carefully unwrapped the webbing before handing the cat back to the little girl. Try to keep Mr. Whiskers off the high wire act, he said gently. The girl hugged the cat tightly. Thank you, Spider-Man. He waved modestly. Just another day in the glamorous life. Across the park, Mary Jane watched with folded arms and a proud smile.
This one, Mom said she would actually read with me if I got it. Then we sold it in the back of another DC book I have. It's a kid's graphic novel. They have different series. This one says kids, even though anyone can read it. It's Primer. It's about this girl who paints. I also got Under the Moon, a Catwoman tale.
That's why it's considered
Graphic
kid.
novel.
There's one that has no violence in it.
Who knows? It could have violence.
I want to buy me the other series, but I don't know where to put it under the bed.
What other series? Oh, and then I think I already showed this one or not, I don't remember. It's the Wonder Twins comics.
The series I want for myself, but you're going to say it's a kid's book.
I'm gonna put these ones up.
So I don't know if I really want to show you.
I have a Monster High comic, Mom. I have kids' books. The fuck you think I want to say the kids' book? Mother, I used to have Dogman. I used to have Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I have kids' books.
But I really want them.
And I have kids' books. I'm not gonna make fun of you for shit I already have. God damn. She thinks I'm a monster.
Unlimited Spider-Man #2, Vulture. Before the wings, before the talons, before the name whispered across police scanners, Adrian Toomes was just a man being erased. Oscorp had a habit of doing that. Adrian had spent 30 years as an engineer. Quiet, brilliant, meticulous. He designed compact turbine systems meant to revolutionize urban power grids. Clean energy, efficient, affordable. The kind of work that should have put his name on the front page of scientific journals. Instead, it put someone else's name on the patents. Younger executives smiled politely when they escorted him out of the building. Corporate language, downsizing, reallocation of credit. Norman Osborn's signature was at the bottom of the transfer forms. Adrian didn't shout when they took his badge. He didn't protest, but something inside him calcified. They thought he was too old, too slow, obsolete. They clipped his wings before he ever got to fly, so he built new ones. Peter Parker was trying very hard not to be late. Again, he jogged down the Midtown sidewalk, adjusting the strap of his backpack, rehearsing excuses in his head. Sorry, Liz, I got stuck helping an old lady cross the street. Too cliche. Sorry, Liz, lab ran late. Too suspicious. Sorry, Liz, He nearly collided with Liz Allen as she stepped out of the coffee shop. She laughed. You were about to run straight into a lamppost. Peter blinked. I was conducting a scientific experiment. On what? Lamppost durability. She rolled her eyes, smiling. You're lucky you're cute. Peter flushed. Liz Allen had always seemed just slightly out of his league. Confident, sharp, the kind of person who walked into a room and owned it. Dating her still felt unreal. They found a table by the window. So, Liz said, stirring her drink, Bugle's still obsessed with Spider-Man? Peter shrugged carefully. Mostly. Across town, inside the Daily Bugle newsroom, J. Jonah Jameson slammed a newspaper down on his desk. Masked vigilantes in my city, he barked. Now I'm hearing rumors of a flying one. Robbie Robertson sighed patiently. They're unconfirmed reports, Jonah. Unconfirmed? I confirm that I don't like it. The first sighting happened at dusk. A security truck transporting experimental Oscorp components never reached its destination. Instead, something descended from the sky. Witnesses described a shadow crossing the moon. Metal wings, glowing green thrusters, talons that tore through armored plating like foil. Adrian Toombs hovered above the disabled vehicle, wind whipping around him as his flight harness hummed with controlled fury. It had taken months to perfect the anti-gravitational stabilizers, months to miniaturize the turbines, months to transform stolen research into something magnificent. He landed lightly atop the truck. They said I was grounded, he muttered. His talons ripped the cargo door free. Police sirens echoed in the distance. And then, a red and blue streak swung into view. Spider-Man landed on a nearby light pole, crouched, head tilted. Okay, I'm gonna guess Halloween came early? Adrian turned slowly. The mask lenses reflected city lights like predatory eyes. You, Adrian said calmly, voice edged with restrained contempt. Another child playing hero. Technically, Spider-Man replied, firing a webline and flipping down onto the street. I'm more of a young adult playing hero. Adrian ignited his wing thrusters. The gust of wind alone knocked Spider-Man backward. With a single powerful beat, Vulture launched skyward. Spider-Man stared upward. Oh, that's new. Vulture dove. The impact cratered the pavement where Spider-Man had stood a split second earlier. Talons slashed. Spider-Man barely backflipped out of reach. You have no idea, Vulture hissed, rising again, circling overhead like a true predator, what it means to have your life's work stolen. Spider-Man shot webs at the wings. They snapped against reinforced alloy. Trust me, Spider-Man quipped, dodging another dive bomb. I've had lab partners take credit. I get it. Vulture shrieked in frustration and fired microturbine bursts that sent cars flipping. This wasn't brute force like Shocker. This was precision, aerial superiority. Spider-Man fired a webline onto a passing helicopter's landing skid and swung upward, gaining height. He'd never fought someone who owned the sky. Vulture twisted midair, wings folding in tight before snapping open again, slicing through Spider-Man's webline. Spider-Man plummeted. He caught a building wall at the last second, clinging to brick as Vulture hovered above. You're too slow, Adrian sneered. Funny, Spider-Man shot back, pushing off the wall. I was about to say you're overcompensating. He fired twin webs, anchoring them to opposite buildings. As Vulture dove again, Spider-Man timed it and slingshotted himself directly into Vulture mid-flight. They crashed through a billboard in an explosion of sparks and canvas. Both tumbled onto a rooftop. Spider-Man scrambled up first, but Vulture's wing assembly flared outward, striking him across the chest and sending him skidding toward the ledge. Vulture stood tall, mechanical wings silhouetted against the skyline. They discarded me, he growled, told me I was past my prime. He launched forward again, but this time Spider-Man was ready. He webbed both wings to rooftop ventilation units mid-dive. The sudden resistance jerked Vulture backward violently. Metal groaned, thrusters sputtered. Spider-Man didn't hesitate. He webbed the flight pack itself, layering thick strands over the stabilizers. Vulture tried to lift. The engines failed, the wings locked, and Adrian Toombs fell hard onto the rooftop. Police lights flooded the building seconds later. Spider-Man stood over him, breathing heavily. You could have just sued them, he said quietly. Adrian glared up at him. They took my sky. Spider-Man's voice softened. Doesn't mean you get to take it from everyone else. The next morning, the Daily Bugle headline read, Spider-Man duels flying menace, city in peril. Jameson jabbed a finger at the front page. Mark my words. First one climbs walls, now one flies. It's a circus out there. Across the room, NYPD Captain Yuri Watanabe addressed reporters calmly. The suspect is in custody. Spider-Man assisted in preventing further damage. Jameson scoffed. Assisted? He's encouraging them. Peter watched the press conference from a hallway television at Midtown High. Liz walked up beside him. Crazy, right? She said. Yeah, Peter replied quietly. She studied the screen thoughtfully. You think Spider-Man's a good guy? Peter hesitated just long enough to feel it. Yeah, he said finally. I think he's trying. Liz smiled faintly. That counts for something. Peter looked back at the screen as footage replayed of Spider-Man swinging between skyscrapers. Early in his career, still learning, Still making mistakes, but growing.
I think he's a good
Somewhere
guy.
inside a holding cell, Adrian Toomes stared at his confiscated wings, grounded again, but not broken. Cast J. Jonah Jameson, played by J.K. Simmons. Yuri Watanabe, played by Manami Hamabi. Liz Allen, played by Laura Harrier. Spider-Man Peter Parker, played by Andrew Garfield. Vulture Adrian Toomes, played by Michael Keaton.